Marvel Rivals Season 2 was weird to say the least. After the immense hype that was Season 1, this season not only sought to continue that hype, but build upon it. And while a lot of good things have happened these past couple of months, I wouldn't exactly say that things have been smooth sailings for the game either. And it's sort of, I wouldn't say kill, but rather grounded my hype for the future of Marvel Rivals, if you will. Season 3, The Abyss Awakens just got revealed and is scheduled for a July 11th, 2025 release. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of features and changes being added to the game. The new characters Phoenix and Blade look pretty cool, I'm loving the new map as well, the Symbiote Battle Pass looks really cool, and improvements to customization like the interchangeable MVPs is a welcome change. It's also marking the beginning of the 2-month seasonal model, meaning that we're going to get more content at a faster rate in the future. But whilst everybody under the sun is looking ahead for Marvel Rivals, I actually want to take a step back and reflect on everything that has happened in Season 2 Hellfire Gala, because it was strange to say the least. A lot of things have happened that make me believe that this is possibly the worst season Marvel Rivals has seen so far. Okay, that statement might be jumping the gun a little bit, because the game has barely been out for a year and who knows what other shenanigans lies in store for it. But there was so much stuff that happened inside and out of Season 2, and some of it might even bleed into Season 3. So I figured it was at least worth discussing about. Starting with probably the most significant talking point of the season, the support strike. Around April of this year, a lot of the coverage online surrounded how strategist mains were abstaining from playing their role during ranked matches. And while a lot of people are pointing towards a certain content creator for sparking the flames, I actually think there's a little bit more going on that contributed to the whole movement. This kicked off around the start of Season 2, just as Emma Frost was added to the game as its latest vanguard. And as a result, strategist as a role had the least amount of characters in the game, especially compared to duelists. But not only that, but generally speaking, when referring to hero shooters, the support role it tends to be one of the more polarizing classes out there in terms of fun factor. And during Season 2, online sentiments surrounding the role were basically split into two schools of thought. On one camp, people believed that strategist was the weakest class out of all the three in the game. And even weeks after the strike happened, people were complaining about being targeted from the back line, i.e. behind their team, by dive characters such as Black Panther, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and more. But on the other hand, people were saying that strategist was the easiest role to play in the game. Tanks were expected to be glorified punching bags, duelists were expected to frag out, and strategists for the most part, but not solely, were expected to keep their team alive. And if a team failed, well, chances are that strategists would often get most of the blame. And not only that, but with Season 2, changes would be implemented to the ranked point system. Now, I can't say I understand exactly how this system works. Based on NetEase's response to the whole ordeal, it's all based on combat data collected during the match, but how that is shaped, well, that could be anybody's guess. But the intention was that individual performances would now become a more significant factor when it came to point allocation for wins and losses during ranked games. And what first appeared as a goodwill gesture in response to community feedback instead spiraled into utter chaos for the game mode. And there also appeared to be some point disparities between roles, as duelists in most cases would receive more points for having more damage and kills overall. And that didn't exactly sit too well with the community, because believe it or not, securing eliminations isn't the only metric of success in a team-based hero shooter like Marvel Rivals. And many people felt that the system was far too linear in its approach to rewarding and penalizing players. Some users also reported that certain characters, due to their playstyle, would receive more points than others. And as is the case with most discussions online, it wasn't long until content creators and influencers threw their hat into the ring. In came Necros, one of the bigger Marvel Rivals content creators out there, who's known for being pretty good at the game, especially Spider-Man, who's sort of become the embodiment of strategist's ire with the game. Now, in the best faith interpretation of some of his takes and arguments that I've seen from Necros online, he's basically saying that strategists require less mechanical skill compared to duelists and vanguards. On top of that, support mains are coming across as entitled because they are responsible for keeping the team alive, when that's not the only metric to success for a team. And so with seemingly the player base, content creators, and even the game itself against them, well, it's no surprise that they sort of snapped, turned around and said, well, let's see you do better. Now, even though this saw a lot of coverage online, I wouldn't exactly say that it was as big of a deal as some people were making it out to be, because with any video game, only a small fraction of players are privy to discussions online, and even fewer of them actively engage with it. But nevertheless, this was a small but significant indicator in the direction the community was going, and would eventually lead to the slow decline of morale that we're currently seeing. Now, Marvel Rivals Season 2 didn't quite reach the same peaks of player counts as Season 1 did, and as of recording, the concurrent player counts are ranging within the 80 to 90,000s on Steam. Now, don't get me wrong, those are still very respectable numbers, but you can't deny that they're it's still a far cry from the peaks it once reached at 600,000 during Season 1's release. And this has sparked a lot of doom and gloom online, saying that the game is dying. And to that I say, well, they're not technically wrong, but it's not exactly dead in the waters either. As with most video games, you're always going to see a spike in player base whenever the game launches or whenever a major update is released. And over time, the casual player base moves on to newer trending titles, and what remains is often the game's core audience. The people who buy the battle passes, buy skins in the store, who read the patch notes online, and grind ranked until they reach one above all. And for casual players, there's been no shortage of new games. Take Monster Hunter Wilds, Expedition 33, and Death Stranding 2 for instance. All of these have drawn waves of people in, who most likely came from playing other games. But if the peaks are anything to go by, then less of that casual audience is returning season after season. And more than that, some of that core audience is starting to leave. Ninja's departure from Marvel Rivals, I think, embodies this as somebody who claims to have left due to the toxicity within the community, which more people are beginning to flag as an issue with the game. But to be honest, I think that's always been the case with any online multiplayer game. It's not really come out of nowhere. I'm willing to wager that the toxicity has always been there, but as more people left the game, those cracks just became more apparent. And I think that toxicity will only grow as the skill gap within Marvel Rivals continues to expand. People are getting better at the game, present company excluded of course, and as a result, matches are getting harder, and so people are more motivated to win, and so when they lose, the crash out burns even hotter. I mean, it's not a unique problem with Marvel Rivals. Games like Valorant and League of Legends are notorious for their toxicity. But we're finally entering the stage where Marvel Rivals is no longer the exception to the rule, but rather perhaps one of its brightest examples. Moving on to a less solemn topic, the last thing I want to talk about are the metas that have plagued Season 2. Now, everyone's talking about how dominant flyers have been, like Human Torch, Iron Man, Storm, and Ultron. But there's one particular moment that caused a lot of confusion online, because one of the weakest characters in the game actually ended up becoming meta. Jeff the Landshark rework, look how they massacred my boy. But don't get it twisted, this character needed a change. He was slowly becoming a menace in ranked as people abandoned the support role and went for a more pseudo-duelist playstyle. His gimmick was, quite frankly, to be as annoying as humanly possible to the enemy team. His high damage compared to his insane survivability meant that a good Jeff player could literally walk into an enemy team and somehow come out of it alive. I think the rework aimed to bring in Jeff more in line as a healer, but what ended up actually happening instead was NetEase brought him to the backyard and started breaking his ankles. His primary source of damage was now relegated to an ability. His bubbles were cut in half and no longer provided instant healing. And on top of all of that, the cherry on top, his swimming now had a stamina gauge, which meant that for the very first time, players would have to walk to the objective. You know it was bad when during the reveal trailer, Jeff almost died in his own showcase and the other team had to stop shooting. And despite receiving a buff to try and make him a more manageable character, the sentiment online was clear that this had basically killed Jeff as a playable hero. They wanted to remove a problem? Well, they did just that. But despite his worsened kit, Jeff the Landshark did actually improve in one key area. A massive bone was thrown his way through a community requested team up called Jeff Nado. This ability was kind of busted. It basically allowed you to combine two ultimates into one, where Storm could get the massive influx of health and damage output as usual, but now she could also absorb enemies into the Storm and deal damage to them, meaning they basically had no way of escape. Realistically, there was very little counterplay against this, and the only way you could deal with it was to remove it from the board entirely, either with an Iron Man or Punisher ultimate. Otherwise, matches would be decided by whoever could get the Jeff Nado team up first. And this was so powerful that it not only saw esports play, but it actually helped a team to win. And those are simply some of the biggest talking points for why I think Season 2 has been the worst season for Marvel Rivals so far. But on the flip side, there's been a lot of good things that came with Season 2. I absolutely adored the Ultron Battle Matrix Protocol limited time mode, and it's such a shame that it was only here for a short while and wasn't a permanent addition to the game. It felt like a completely different game as an auto battler, and in many ways it was. And I also thought Emma Frost and Ultron were really good additions to the game. And not just that, they were actually viable picks that eventually became meta, and not just cheap gimmicks. I'm sort of concerned that when it comes to the new heroes, they're sort of pushed out of the gate overtuned, so it kind of feels like they're throwing a spanner into the works when it comes to the in-game balance. Nobody liked Ultron at first, then they buffed him to Kingdom Come, and now he's a must pick in esports. And also, can we calm it down with portals and maps? They're starting to get a little bit annoying to play against. I think after season 2, the community's mentality has sort of taken a hit at the moment, especially since a lot of people are concerned for the lifespan of the game. As Flats puts it, Marvel Rivals may very well be a game that burns brightly and quickly, as NetEase tries to take as much as they can from the game whilst it's in the spotlight. Like I said before, I'm looking forward to season 3, I'm just not as enthusiastic as I was before. I know, the game has only been out for a few months and I'm already getting tired of it. It must be the Gen Z attention span, I guess. But anyways, thanks for listening to my recap of season 2, and I look forward to what kind of headlines we'll see in season 3.